Oh, hi. My name's Raymond Cosley, and ushered in good old Bailey, the American pageant. And we're just basically talking about how, the presidential election of 1860 kind of unified America, and there was totally not a war afterwards, or the events that happened beforehand definitely didn't lead up to conflict, and America was always unified and nationalism. Um, yeah. No, I don't think that's what really happened. My name is Raymond Cosley. This is my 2016 fall presentation of learning for History 101. And the question I'll be discussing today is how the events leading up to the presidential election of 1860 in regard to Abraham Lincoln, how do those events kind of lead to the Civil War, and how were those, addressed? And yeah, let's get started. So I believe the initial, I think from the beginning, why we even had the Civil War was mainly due to, this was in the 1820, but because of the era of good feelings. It was really a time where there was a lot of controversy between, especially, slavery, the North and the South. North believed for slavery, South was totally against it, yet it wasn't necessarily addressed, and it was more kind of like, in a sense, more passive aggressive in terms of how they address slavery and their differing political views. Yet they still had one political party, which was strange. So yeah, I think just the suppression of everyone's feelings kind of led to the outbursts we had, during 1850s to the 1860s. So I think the first thing I want to address is the Compromise of 1850, and that was basically a compromise where it allowed for, it was a law passed by Congress that said that people could turn in people they thought were slaves or runaway slaves, and this was definitely a problem, especially when you had free black men or black women in the northern, in the north, and people could turn them in and they could eventually go to slavery despite the fact that they may have been born free or they were a free slave, and it just made everyone their own police and their own sheriff. And as you can imagine, that caused tons of controversy. I'm sure the slaves were mad. Everyone was probably confused, and it was just definitely caused anger within the people. Also, to just to clarify how much slavery, the belief of slavery was so strong. You had a man named John Brown who killed an entire family who was against slavery. And that just kind of goes to show how strongly people felt about slavery. For a man to kill an entire family who, anti-slavery family, that's pretty aggressive, and it kind of shows, even why we would even go to war over an issue like this. And also people were starting to believe as if it was kind of like a conspiracy theory, which seemed to be true, that Congress was kind of run by people who were for slavery. And we saw that because the North had more people, and yet they enforced slave power despite the fact that they almost had double the amount of population than the South did. So that definitely brought questions with the people. And then you also have a man named Dred Scott who was a slave, and the slave owner went to the North with him, and he basically said that, oh, I'm not a slave anymore and you can't enslave me. And I think that kind of goes and then eventually Congress did rule that basically said that the white man was completely in control of you, and this led more people to believe that Congress was for slavery. It was a highly slave-powered Congress. And then you also have a man named John Harper, which basically gave slaves guns to rise up against their leaders or their slave owners. And that was definitely an issue. The rebellion eventually went down. He ended up dying, and so did a lot of people for the cause. But I guess in a sense he is, a martyr for the abolitionist cause. And he said something along the lines that he knew that the issue, right before he got hanged, that the issue was something that would have to end over bloodshed. And I think that was kind of a foreshadow to the Civil War. And then that set the stage for Abraham Lincoln. And Abraham Lincoln didn't have that many votes, but he won 40% of the popular vote, putting him into the presidential election. And this definitely caused problems with the North and the South, or more so the South, because you had a ton of Southerners who moved more south and left. I believe you ended up having 7 states that left because of that. And Abraham Lincoln even did say that he would leave the slaves, in the South, he would leave the slave states alone and leave the free states alone. And yeah, this caused for a ton of controversy. People were upset, and this eventually led all those things that I just mentioned. Kind of goes to show that the severity of the issue of slavery and how that actually led to the Civil War. And the presidential, since Abraham Lincoln was against slavery, the people, of the South started to believe that, oh, now we're going to have a president who is against slavery, and he's going to, whatever you may do, ban slavery in our states or whatnot. So that's how Abraham Lincoln ended up. I think the presidential election of 1860 really caused the war, because that was, in a sense, the tipping point of what happened. So thank you for listening. It's my 2016 fall presentation of learning. I'll go back to reading how unified America was during 1860s.